dig up that old fossil.
Going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
That's no move.
We're all fine here now, thank you. How are you?
Welcome to the Star Wars Nerds Podcast. I'm Dan Vadebonker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
Happy Election Day, Kenton.
Manitoba Election Day 19.
Manitoba, yeah, exactly. And then for those who don't know, we are in a middle. It's Election-palooza here in Canada because tomorrow, I'm going to get rid of this music. After our election is complete, it's happening as we speak. People are going to the polls. They're voting. Obviously, we encourage everyone to please exercise their democratic right and vote. Although I don't want to be preachy about it, but some people get mad when you suggest they vote and they don't want to. But tomorrow,
You got it. It's the minimum participation.
well, yeah, but some people get pissy about it. Anyway, tomorrow morning, they're dropping the writ for the federal election. So we don't even get a day break. It's going to go right from provincial to federal. And I wonder if they're waiting for ours to be done. Because it's not even a month. It's supposed to be a month out, right? It's not. I think the election day is October 21st or something like that for the federal. So it's more than a month away. Where it's September 10th today. So anyway, I don't know how that works. But I thought that since it's election day in Manitoba, it's going to be election day in Canada next month, and then election day in the USA next year.
A year later.
So just elections everywhere. I thought it might be appropriate for us to speak about the politics of Star Wars and kind of see if we can figure out what was going on there. Because I think George Lucas wanted politics to be an important part of Star Wars. Clearly, he had an interest in it, and that became more obvious as we went into the prequels. But I don't know that he conveyed it very well. So I want to kind of talk to you about what you think is happening.
I think the problem was when he started conveying it well, it got boring.
Well, exactly.
Don't you think that's the main issue?
There are ways. Game of Thrones certainly proved there are ways to have an exciting, interesting story that involves both politics and action, and I think there is a way to do that properly. Just didn't end up doing that properly.
I think it might be better for television than for a motion picture.
You have more time to get into the politics of it. Okay, anyway, we're going to talk about that, but first, you know how I always like to start us off with some Star Wars clickbait.
Ojaba. What? How? What are you talking about? Huh? What? Goodness gracious me.
The headline is from inverse.com, but I'm sure they got it from somewhere else because it's the way the internet rolls. The headline is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker Trailer 3 will be the most violent yet.
And it is based on
so this is from
on someone's guess?
No, this is okay. So you know how, but it is reaching a bit, but you know how they rate trailers? Like you see the trailer, this trailer, and there are R-rated trailers. You see the red band trailer and that kind of stuff. That there are trailers that do have swears and stuff in them. Anyway, so this is based on the British Board of Film Classification. They rated the third Rise of Skywalker trailer, which means that first of all, it means that we're going to be getting it soon. Because if they're rating it, that means they've seen it. They're getting it ready to put that little placard up there saying this is what the trailer is rated.
Yeah.
But that rating is. Hold on a second. 12A. So 12A is more than PG. The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi were both rated PG. All the trailers for those two films. This upcoming trailer C for The Rise of Skywalker is rated 12A. Based on what we can expect from Star Wars, this is probably for violence, dangerous behavior, or threat and horror. Those are the
threat and horror.
That's what it says.
That sounds like one of those HBO disclaimers at the beginning.
Yes, that's right.
The following show will have sex, violence, smoking, brain damage. like they just got vaping.
I think it's interesting. Sometimes they have just a generic one of those. Like if you watch something like Space, our sci-fi channel up here, and then they have like something. This following film contains scenes of violence, coarse language, and something, and it's always the exact same thing. No matter what, they try to cover all their bases with the exact same thing. But some, I noticed, for example, when I was watching The Boys on on Amazon, they actually specified per episode what kind of stuff you were going to see. So it's a bit of a spoiler, actually, when you get into it. We're going to see signs of sex and nudity, but that wasn't in every episode. That was only in certain episodes. Signs of horrific violence, because there is some of that. So it's interesting how they personalize it per episode. So this is coming out soon, I guess. It runs 2 minutes and 16 seconds. So it's the longest trailer yet.
Is this clickbait or is this true?
Well, I guess this is true, but it's just the headline is the clickbait, right?
Right. Oh, right.
That's the clickbait
I get
part of it. I'm reading the article here.
Well, I keep thinking that, but I'm wrong. But I keep thinking that clickbait, by definition, means that clicking makes you disappointed.
Well,
but that's not necessarily what clickbait is.
Clickbait just makes you click. That's the only.
I guess the bait part of it.
Oftentimes, you are disappointed in the results of that clicking.
Well, when you go fishing and you put the bait on the rod and reel, do you think like when you reel in the fish is like, that was fishing rod bait? I don't know. What would the fish say? That was clickbait.
Yeah, that's right.
No, more clickbait.
Bite bait, because they bite on the bait.
I think we're writing a New Yorker cartoon.
Or just bait, rather. Just call it bait when it's fishing. So there you go. That's it. That's all that this is really about. So again, it's a full article just telling us that one thing, that the British rating board, and that's only Britain. So I don't know, like their rating system is different from ours, and it's different from the States. Generally speaking, the U.S. is stricter for these things. Like something that's rated R in the States is usually rated PG-14 here. 14? Yeah.
We don't. I thought it was still 13 here. No.
We have a PG-14.
Is it okay? See,
we have a PG-13 and a PG-14. Or it's called 14A.
Oh, okay, 14A.
Yep.
And sorry, what's the other one called?
PG-13.
We have that in Canada.
We have PG-13.
I have never noticed that.
I may not come up a lot because it is very close to 14A.
Yeah.
So there is that, and then there's PG and G and that kind of stuff. But we are generally speaking a lot more lenient. I was actually looking this up the other day because my daughter really wants to see It. The first It, the one that.
Are
came
you
out.
kidding? She got afraid at everything.
What are you talking about?
Well, didn't you say at Force Awakens she was trembling when she saw blood?
Well, that was in 2015, Ken, and that was 4 years ago. She was 6 years old.
Then you said they would not watch Shazam because they're afraid
that
of
was
the
my
seven
youngest.
deadly.
That was my youngest.
Oh, I thought that was all of them.
No, just Luke.
Oh, I pictured your whole family cowering in fear as they watched
That was pretty. I would say that the scene from Shazam was pretty jarring. Like the boardroom scene where they like throw the guys out the windows and do all kinds of stuff.
You know what that scene reminded me of? The liar scene where he insults everybody around the table.
It actually reminded me of Dogma. There's a scene in Dogma where they're in the boardroom and they're like listing and the angels, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, come in and they list all the sins of all the people in the boardroom and then they go ahead and
I don't
kill them
remember
all.
that. No.
Oh, it's part of Dogma, Kevin Smith's Dogma movie. Anyway, okay, let's get into this main topic of
the politics of Star Wars.
Yeah. So let's start with the first film, In A New Hope. Generally, we don't really know. We're kind of dropped into this world. We don't really know what the situation is. Do you remember when you went to see this film for the first time, understanding anything about the Empire? What it was all about?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure that the boardroom scene with the
that's the main politics scene. Yeah. So I think what we're meant to get, this is of course the one where basically we're introduced, like we're not introduced to Darth Vader as a person, but they're introduced to him using the Force. I think that's the first time we see him use the Force.
Oh, I think you're right.
Yep. So that's of course the guy saying, none of your wizard's ways, Vader, whatever he says, and then Vader does the Force choke on him. But that scene is meant to convey that they're still going through the motions of this being a democracy, right? They're talking about the Senate, what they're going to let them do or let them not do, that kind of stuff. And then basically Tarkin's like, you know what, screw them. We're doing what we want.
Here's the part I remember. I just looked it up really fast, so I didn't know this from memory. But as a kid, I mean, what do you know about politics as a kid? You don't know anything. And so I remember just like that. I just zoned out during those scenes and just zoned back in when he started choking people. But here's the line. The rebellion will continue to gain support in the Imperial Senate. The Imperial Senate will no longer be of any concern to us. I've just received word that the Emperor has dissolved the council permanently. The last remnants of the old republic have been swept away. And we're like, that's right. Okay. Senate, council, republic. Duh. Like no one could have possibly understood that.
But
even people who know how politics work.
But he expanded upon that in the prequels when he talked about.
Oh, did he ever?
Well, and again, lots of very boring scenes of people sitting down and talking in those prequels. But essentially, what we're getting at here is there was the old Republic was a galactic Senate, so it would have every planet would have their elected representatives, right? We assume elected. Can we assume that?
I don't know
if it's a democracy.
Well. I think we would have to go back to attack, as sad as this is, to Attack of the Clones and the floating.
Right, the floating things with the the ETs, right? ET species.
Yeah,
in there.
but is there ever a reference to anybody there being democratically
No,
elected.
I
don't think
I don't
so.
even know if they were. Yeah, well, we don't know. The didn't get that deep into the politics of it, but I'm going to presume these are elected individuals. It's funny because I think we do know that Queen Amidala is in fact elected. She's an elected queen.
Yeah,
for some reason.
well,
and then she becomes a senator after that. She is a queen when we meet her in the first film, and then in the second film, 10 years later, she's a senator.
we're doing film by film here, right?
I don't
So
know.
are
We're
we
just
gonna-
jumping all
no.
over the place.
Because
I'm trying to figure out the idea, the whole situation.
So what is the overarching?
Yeah, what is the system of government that they use in Star Wars, and how did that fall apart and become the Empire? Because I think is that essential to the story. The story is, of course, of Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker and the whole Skywalker saga, but at the heart of the whole thing is this government collapse, the Emperor seizing power and then turning it into a totalitarian dictatorship, essentially. Right? He calls it an empire, but an empire is like what other empires? The Roman Empire was an empire, but that was also democracy, right? They had an elected Senate.
Well, there is the discussion with hang on. With Anakin, I'm looking it up with Anakin and Natalie Portman, everybody's favorite scene. Just give me 1 second here. No, I'm not talking about the sand speech.
Everyone's favorite speech.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm trying to remember.
Is that
it.
when they're trying to figure it out, like to explain it to people? Is there a little bit of
There should just be one person who decides what everybody should do. That speech.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So and I'm clearly not saying. I'm not saying it word for word.
I know, but
you know
so
that part.
When Anakin is again, we're supposed. Well, this is about the character development of Anakin, where he feels that there should be one. Like, he wants there to be an empire. Basically, he wants one person to decide everything based on his experiences.
I found the quote. We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem, agree what's in the interest of all the people, and then do it. And if they didn't, they should be made to. Meh.
Right. They should be made to do it.
Right.
In other words, have a dictator.
In other words, have Darth Vader choke them.
Right. Until they
and
shut
then
up.
until they do it.
Right. So yeah, in the beginning of the Phantom Menace, we have this Senate. It all starts with a trade dispute, of course, just like China, just like the trade war with China.
Yeah, and it's just as boring.
And just as racist, actually, as well, because those guys are pretty racist.
Do you find when you watch that under the prism of today that it's worse than it was?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
At the time, I don't recall.
I don't know.
thinking
I
that.
didn't think that either of those guys, those Trade Federation guys. I didn't think anything of it. I certainly didn't think that Watto sounded Jewish. But yeah, in retrospect, those particularly the Trade Federation guys, what is their species called?
The Nemodians.
Something like that. I didn't catch that, but if I watch it now, I will. Yeah, I do actually feel like that sounds. It sounds like a Chinese accent is what it sounds like.
I think I was distracted by the bad rubber mask.
There could be that as well, right? That's the other part of that issue. So anyway, the dispute is...
So there's a trade dispute,
yeah,
which has been much maligned and mocked by Star Wars fans.
But why? Why don't people like that?
I think what George Lucas had in mind is the classic, it's something little that people don't notice, or that seems like it's just nothing, that becomes something grander and scarier. I think that was the whole idea. And similarly, Darth Vader himself was like the little guy who just like is just this little benign kid in the first movie, and he becomes something scary and nightmarish. I think that's what he was showing with that political stuff.
So in the first film, Episode 1, I'm talking about. We have the Trade Federation. They have a blockade.
Our blockade is perfectly legal.
They're blockading off Naboo. They don't want. There's no trade. Nobody going in and out of Naboo, which is cutting them off. And of course, the Galactic. What is it? The old Republic doesn't. Are they just the Republic? They're not the old Republic until after they're over, right? Can we call them the Republic?
I guess so.
All right. Okay.
We're revealing our own ignorance but I think a lot of people who watch the movies are like us.
Yeah.
Which is it's difficult. It's difficult to sort of pick
It
through
is.
it and figure it out.
So the Republic doesn't like that. They send, of course, the Jedi Order sends the Jedi to take care of it. But in the end, the battle at the end becomes between our heroes being Qui-Gon and Anakin and Obi-Wan and the Queen and all them and the Trade Federation. The space battle is between the Republic and the Trade Federation. The lightsaber battle is Darth Maul showing up, and that's again, this is when we start to see the Emperor or Darth Grievous. What's his last name?
Sidious?
Darth Sidious, right? Kind of orchestrating things from the background, and he's like, we don't know this at the time, but he's actually playing both sides. We don't realize this until I think the third film in that series, where he is supplying like the Trade Federation he's working with them in order to get the Galactic Senate to give him power. Right. He wants to call a vote of no confidence. He wants to seize power and make sure that declare an emergency and then basically institute martial law so that he can grab the power and then not give it back. That's the ultimate goal for him.
And it's also interesting. Like, I never hated Jar Jar Binks for the reasons everyone else did. I hated him for being the moron who helps vote Palpatine into power. Well, that's an unforgivable mistake on the part of Jar Jar Binks.
But he's just a pawn, I think. I think he's just doing what they're telling him to do.
Yeah, but they show him going, huh? Like Scooby-Doo, huh? Looking around, and then he goes, and he votes, helps Palpatine.
Well, yeah, because he thinks he's
parade his way in, and for that alone, he should be executed.
How did Jar Jar become a senator? That's what I want to know. Is it because he was a hero during the Battle of Naboo? Is that why?
I think
like they give their war hero senator status, just like the U.S.
I think that's populism for you. I do. I think that's what they're showing there, like a brain. Well, we should make judgments about Jar Jar's brain, but he's shown to be kind of not a deep thinker, and maybe that's who people want to vote in at that point. Let's just say.
Well, I think it just shows you how people can. So this supports our theory that it is an elected government, because I could see him, because he made quite the name for himself thanks to his participation. He shows up in the city with these two Jedi, talks to the boss Nass or whatever his name is. And starts so people aren't aware of who he is. Goofs and like stumbles into being a hero in the battle because he's a clumsy idiot. Slapsticking his way across the battlefield and destroying a bunch of droids and winning the battle that way. And so based on that popularity, he gets elected as a senator. That's it. That's all he needs. It's like name recognition. Oh, Jar Jar Binks. I recognize the name. I'm going to mark an X next to Jar Jar Binks on that ballot.
And it's interesting because behind the scenes, as you say, Palpatine is working with first Maul, then with Count Dooku.
Yep.
And maybe both of them in Phantom Menace, but we don't know it. Is there any indication of that? I don't know.
Of what?
Of Count Dooku and Darth Maul not knowing about each other.
Well, we never find out because Maul's killed in the first movie. Dooku's not introduced till the second movie.
So it's hard to. I guess we don't know.
So that means like at the beginning of the second movie.
But the clone army had been ordered already. Had it not?
That was to fight off the Trade Federation. I think that went forward in the beginning of the first movie. Oh, we got to rewatch them. Second movie. We got to rewatch it. We will, by the way. And by the way, I'm going to start airing our old episodes of the watching stuff next week. So
good.
Because we're already within 10 weeks of the movie. It's less than 10 weeks away.
Crazy.
So it's crazy. So anyway, yeah, that's I don't think that Maul and Dooku knew each other. I never bought that Dooku was an apprentice to Sidious. Dooku is just kind of this guy who was like doing his own thing.
Bad Jedi.
Well, he's a bad Jedi, but I never really bought that he was fully on the dark side. I think he was doing what he thought was right. But he's too old to be an apprentice to Sidious, right? Like he's old enough to be a Jedi Master at this point, or be a Sith Master.
We never saw that in action.
No,
that relationship.
No.
So like,
although he does pretend to kidnap the Emperor at the beginning of the third film.
Right.
That was like that happened. So that's all staged,
right,
in order to get them to take this whole thing seriously. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway,
but it's interesting how they're doing, like the point you made. They're doing sort of their dark arts behind the scenes, and they need an army, and the best way to get control of the army is to seize control. And then once you seize control, so you declare emergency powers. We need an army to protect us. So then you get the army, and then you begin invading the entire system. And I think that is the progression. That's how the chancellor becomes the emperor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And love, actually, I will say this, like that shot or that scene, the sequence in Attack of the Clones where we see the clones being kind of like basically paraded out, they're being kind of distributed and going off, and all those ships and all the troops marching. That's really powerful, and that does bring to mind images of like the Third Reich and Hitler and all that stuff, which is meant to do.
Yeah.
I think in the end, the empire is just kind of meant to represent Nazis, I think, is probably the idea. And maybe it is a parallel. I don't know enough about German history, but maybe that's how Hitler got power. I don't know. I should know this.
No, it is.
Is it how he got power? Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was a laughing stock. He got control. He exerted his authority. And actually, one of the things that I did last summer is I went to the Montreal Holocaust Museum. And it walks you through, it's like a great museum. It's like not too different from our Canadian Museum for Human Rights, actually, but it's dedicated to that one thing. And when you walk through and you sort of see the progression and how it kind of went, it was a slow progression over a lot of time. Like he didn't, like when you watch the newsreel footage, you're like, how did that ever work?
Yeah.
And the way it worked was slowly, like lots of passage of time.
Not too slowly, though, because we still had like the end of World War I in 1918, and then less than 20 years later, well, not less, 21 years later, they're on to World War II.
But
one generation.
But the war and then the ghettos then became death camps and gas chambers. And then the trains, what originally started bringing people to their deaths, then ended up increasing in frequency. And you start and you just see everything. And businesses in Germany were using slave labor from the prison camps to produce their goods. Like it was ugly. Yeah. So so it was backed by big business, if you can believe it. And but when you go through the progression, like the control of the media and the vilification of different groups and all of that stuff, you see, you absolutely see the parallel to that when it's like, well, the first thing is we need to get rid of all the Jedi. Right. We need to get rid of them.
They're like the police force kind of thing.
They're the ones who you need to be afraid of, not us.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing.
Yeah.
So the blaming and the victimization, or the pretending that
you're
a victim.
In the end, the way he gets rid of the Jedi is with this pre-programmed order in all the clones. So that was all done behind the back of everybody, pretty much.
Well, built into the clones, I always wonder about that, and like those bastards in Camino who don't say anything when Obi-Wan shows up. So Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up.
Right.
And they go, yeah, we've made your clones. We hope they're to your liking and all that stuff. And he comes and checks it out. And he's like, what the hell is this? Like,
and obviously they think he's representing their client, and he's not. He just kind of stumbled upon this.
Right.
So, yeah.
But would they not, if they thought he had actually ordered them, would there not be some indication?
By the way, that secret message to kill all the Jedi, that's ready to go.
Because they had to build that in.
Right. Yes. It has to be subconscious and automatic, and they spend, and we know this from the Clone Wars TV series, they spend a lot of time with the Jedi, so they build a relationship. Like we see Cody and all those clone troopers who become characters in the TV series spend a lot of time with Anakin and Obi-Wan and all the other Jedi. So for them to turn around and just kill them in a moment, that's all got to be pre-programmed into them, right? Which is really scary that they did that,
right?
Kind of thing, right? So yeah, you think they would say something about that, but
that's kind of like there's the movie The Manchurian Candidate, and the whole idea is they've been brainwashed, but they're sleeper cells, and they're ready to wake up if you say the words. If your controller says the magic words.
Same with the Winter Soldier. If you guys, you remember the Winter Soldier?
Of course.
He's got the book that he reads the secret words from.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's all. The Manchurian Candidate was really the first one that kind of talked about that.
Right.
But yeah.
And the Winter Soldier never paid to go to see the Steve Rogers exhibit.
That's right.
And so he better, if he ever shows up there again, he better bring that late fee.
For sure. So there you go.
So Star Wars. Yeah. Back to the broad view of this thing. I think you do see. We don't see Palpatine seize the control of the media.
We never really see the.
What is the media?
The only media I feel like we ever see in Star Wars is the two-headed announcers in the pod race. Like I never get a sense of what media is like in the Star Wars universe as far as news.
Oh, we see gambling. Do we not see races being bet on screens? What is that? What do we see? Like, was that in the I don't know if I'm thinking of Last Jedi or if I'm thinking of
Solo.
Where did we see that?
But what we don't see is the traditional newscaster, which is a very common trope in many, many films. That's a way to get information across without having a huge amount of
Yet they have two-headed play-by-play announcers at the pod race. Where is the media?
I don't know. That's a good question.
There is only one-on-one media. This is interesting.
They may be. Now, I could be wrong here, but there may be examples of it in other shows and other parts of Star Wars, like Rebels. I feel like there was something going on there with the media, but again, I don't remember specifically. But certainly in the films where there's no evidence that we ever see a news media of any kind. Yeah. As far as a reporter or any way to consume the news.
Right.
That's just something. And I would imagine in an empire, you want to keep that to a minimum anyway. So you would have one central, like a Pravda style, central publishing giant that just kind of puts the news out there that they want people to hear, not what's actually happening. So there might be something like that, but we've never seen that. We've never had evidence. If somebody can think of something, please let us know, because I'm blanking on it right now as far as the media is. But that'd be interesting to know what that is.
You never see anyone just chilling, watching TV.
No.
A screen.
It's like a TV-free world.
Holograms.
Holograms, sure, but that's not...
That's like their iPhone.
It's like a black and white image, though. It's not very good to watch. Like, I would only want to watch like a full color hologram.
The hologram, let's just think. There's no. I'm sure that we see. Well, there's pod racing, which you can bet on, and I think
I'm sure there is other stuff too. There's those races, those creatures that race at in the casino scene in The Last Jedi and that kind of stuff. So there is stuff like that, but that's like live sporting events, essentially, is what that is, and there would be a broadcast of that people would watch.
We don't get a good sense on people having to leave their home planet to escape the Empire. Or people...
I think the idea is that people are just living their lives and they're not really affected by the Empire overall. Like, I mean, we get lots of examples of people who are punished and persecuted, especially alien races. The Empire is kind of racist in that regard. They don't like aliens. They like humans best. Right? We have multiple examples of that.
And clones.
They like humans so much.
And they take babies to turn them into stormtroopers.
Yeah, or they also recruit. There's also some examples of the Dark Jedi or the Sith Lords or whatever recruiting children to turn them into the dark side. That happens in Rebels. But yeah, they just kind of, people are just living their lives is the idea, right? They're just not overly affected by it, which would probably be true in that case. Now,
well, it's more like they're under watch. They're being watched.
Yeah, and so, but it is a dictatorship in that at any point the Empire it's like living in communist Soviet Russia, where anybody could come in at any time and do whatever they wanted, kind of thing. There's no freedoms, there's no rights. Now let's fast forward to the modern era of Star Wars. We don't get much into this. I think other than that boardroom scene, there's not much about the politics of Star Wars in the rest of Star Wars, the original trilogy, right? Like basically it's about the rebels fighting the Empire, and that's it.
We do see the Emperor statue come down at the end.
Well, that's true. That's an added scene.
So that's that's got political movement there.
Oh, for sure.
People,
yeah.
We see people celebrating. They're happy they're not under the eye, under his eye. Handmaid's Tale. Oh, that came out today.
Oh,
the
did it really?
sequel to Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, there you go.
But we do get a sense that people are happy when the Emperor goes down.
So moving ahead to the newer trilogy here, the modern trilogy, they have, when we come in at the Force Awakens, we have the First Order, which is not the Empire. It's built on the remains of the Empire.
They're like neo-Nazis.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
Nazi fanboys.
The Nazis fall, and then the neo-Nazis come up. But I guess there's a hint that the Emperor was behind this, or maybe the Emperor is not behind this. We don't know that yet.
Maybe not. I think it would be super cool if the Emperor showed up with and there in the last trailer, that's an old fleet of Star Destroyers that you see coming in. That's like not the new version. So wouldn't it be cool if the Emperor just pulled in and first of all got rid of the First Order? like thanks for holding my space for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Bam. just got rid of them. So like now I can just fight them by myself.
So, but what is the resistance? How does that work? Because we do have what they're calling the New Republic. After the Empire falls, they form the New Republic, which is a Senate. Mon Mothma is in charge. All this stuff is detailed in the books, the Aftermath books and that kind of stuff. So Mon Mothma is in charge. They do have an elected Senate. They're working to build it. Not a lot of planets are in it, but they're working to admit new planets into it and create this interplanetary government. But what is the resistance? Why is the resistance not just
the rebellion?
Republic? No, but the resistance is not. Yeah. I was always confused about that. I've always, for the last 4 years since the movie came out, but it's not very clear what that resistance is supposed to be. Right? It's not the military arm of the Republic. Correct?
Let me think about that. No, I don't think so.
I'm going to Google this and see what I can come up with here because I'm.
Yeah, but I think one of the complaints about The Force Awakens was that element was not very well sketched out. Like even when they blow up when the base blows up the Resistance base, we don't really know what was happening there, and we don't really get a sense of how big a thing that is.
Yeah, well, it's weird because we get a sense of like how much money and resources would have gone into the creation of Starkiller Base. Like who's bankrolling the First Order is my question. Where do they get their cash from? Because they've got so much. They've got these they don't have clones, but they have these like conditioned soldiers as stormtroopers, and they've got tons of Star Destroyers and fleets. So where's that all coming from? Right? That's
I mean, we almost scratched the surface of that with Benicio del Toro in Last Jedi when it's all the weapons manufacturers.
Yeah, very true.
So we learned where that the same ones that make the X-Wing
are making the TIE
Fighter.
Yeah.
But we don't really get a sense of where everybody gets their money from and how that arms race works.
Interesting.
I remember one of the things we speculated was that we were gonna maybe those would ultimately be the villains in the last film, but no, I don't think so. Now that we've got the Emperor coming back and we know it.
Yeah, so this says that the Resistance is a fictional resistance movement, a private paramilitary force. So not led by General Leia Organa that opposes the First Order. It is a splinter of the military of the New Republic.
Oh.
So it's like they basically broke off from the military of the new. It's an independent. So it's like almost like a mercenary force of independent contractors, so to speak, who just want to. Which seems weird to me. Why would they do that? Why would they not be?
There's probably a comic book or novel that explains
yeah.
the political ramifications of all this. I don't know what it is.
The New Republic did not deem the First Order to be a credible threat, so Senator Organa and several other rebel veterans who believed the First Order to be a threat to peace broke away from the New Republic's military and founded the Resistance to check the First Order. This is all from Wikipedia, so I don't know. Take that as it were, but interesting. Wow, there's quite a bit here, actually. Yeah, again, I don't know that they worked all this out before the movie came out, though, or they just filled it in after the fact.
Well, one of the discussions we'll have after the last movie comes out is does it seem to be a coherent trilogy? Because right now it seems it's a little...
It feels like it's a bit by the seat of your pants.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff doesn't seem that way, but other stuff does appear to be like, here, you take the baton. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And we'll see in this movie. It's already starting to look like JJ is swinging things back a little bit to where they were in The Force Awakens.
That's why The Last Jedi is such a different movie, is it really goes off to like a skew.
Takes a tangent.
Right. And you'd think that like George Lucas had the story for all these films worked out ahead of time. The basic story for everything worked out ahead of time. So you'd think that they would do that for this, even though they didn't take George Lucas's ideas, they would still do that and map it out ahead of time. But it just feels, The Last Jedi feels so disjointed from the rest of it, Like, I don't know that they did that. It was such a weird tangent to go off of.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, so in this last one, we know the Emperor is back.
Yeah.
What is the master plan here? What is the plan? And clearly the Emperor had a plan B if he were to get blown up in the Death Star.
So last episode, you told us about your theory, and it's still, I think, a brilliant theory about the possibility that Rey is a clone. or there's different versions of Rey around. And the one we see in the trailer is like,
which would tie into the cave scene,
right? It would now, and that exactly. But my only issue with that is that we've had no mention of clones in this series at all,
or the Emperor for that matter.
True, yeah. So this is kind of coming out of left field.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Emperor wants to seize power. I think he just craves power. That's all he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to get back on top. So he could have been.
He's clearly playing a long game since he was with us
30 plus years, like in hiding, basically, right?
And he was with us in episode 1, all the way through to now.
Although I wonder if there's one of the theories out there, of course, is that Snoke is the Emperor. I don't believe that.
No.
But was Snoke working for the Emperor? Do you think is that possible?
He could have been working for him, possessed by him. Do you think we're going to see Flesh and Blood Emperor, or are we just going to see hologram?
I think we'll see Flesh and Blood Emperor.
I think we need to,
yeah,
right? If you're going to get the actor.
Yeah, he'll be there in person for sure.
So I'm not sure what that means. It means to control everything, right? To control the universe.
He wants to
everlasting
be in charge.
life. We know he wants.
Yeah, but he also wants all the power. That's what he wants.
Everlasting life and all the power.
Yep.
And the ability to save lives or destroy them as he sees fit. Because remember, he said,
I don't know that whole thing about saving lives. I think that was just something he used to get Anakin hooked into the dark side.
But his story of Darth Plagueis was
real. But I think the reason he told that story to Anakin is because he knew Anakin had this thing that when he lost his mother, he had this obsession with like stopping death. Anakin did. And so I think that Palpatine was just kind of playing on that to get Anakin to consider the dark side and to show him that, yes, the dark side can do this for you if you choose to go down the dark side. That I don't know that the Emperor shares that desire to not. I mean, obviously he doesn't want to die, but you know, he's like the Skeksis. Have you watched The Dark Crystal yet? The Skeksis have this very similar, and there's a lot of parallels between that and Star Wars. They have this obsession with immortality. They do not want to die. They do not die, and it's a very strong part of their belief system. And so I think Palpatine is the same way. He doesn't want to die, and he wants to live forever. So, yeah, I don't know.
So everlasting life isn't good enough. You also need to have the control.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he comes back or maybe, I don't know, maybe he's been retired on a planet for 30 years and all of a sudden he gets dragged back in somehow. Maybe he's like Thanos. He just wants to have a farm on a planet. After he wipes out half of the population of the galaxy.
But if Palpatine shows up, it looks like it's with a giant fleet of vintage Star Destroyers.
Well, that people got excited about that because they thought it was that fleet. What was the Katana fleet? Remember that from the Timothy Zahn?
Oh yeah,
they had this fleet of dreadnoughts. It's this Katana fleet that the hook to those was. Did we talk about this? I thought we did. Was that they could all be controlled from one ship, so that you don't need to have the crew. They could all be like one ship can control everything, so that you only needed the crew for one Star Destroyer, but you would have like 100 Star Destroyers at your disposal. So that's what people think that is. It's the Katana fleet.
Could Thrawn be on one of those?
Possibly, absolutely possible, because that would be, and again, we lose Thrawn at the end of Rebels, but we don't see him die. I don't think he's dead in this world. There's been another series of books out talking about the origins of Thrawn. Timothy Zahn is actually writing them.
Yeah.
There's the one about his origins that I've read. I have not read the second book in the series, which is about him and Darth Vader working together during the heyday of the Empire kind of thing, and that 10 years between movies. He works very closely with Darth Vader a lot. So yeah, that's gonna build up to the story. So we could very well get a Thrawn. Is that too much at this point to going forward? Like
there's already lots that we know we're heading toward in this film.
But at this point, we should be wrapping things up. This is the final.
That's the odd thing. Like that's why when you see Dark Rey, you go, well, it cannot be a massive part of the plot. Because how can it be?
Because there's only one movie.
Right. It just doesn't make sense that it would be anything other than a clone or a vision.
In the first trilogy, they spent 3 movies working Luke towards the dark side. He only very briefly flirts with it.
Yeah.
And then he's back on the light side. But he does kind of flirt with it. And that was like a full 3 movies to work into that. To do that in one film and have her be as far over as she appears to be in that, I don't think that's possible.
No, I don't think it would happen. I don't think so.
So it's got to be some sort of red herring. It does have to be.
I mean, have we left behind the political stuff?
I don't know.
From the other Star Wars? No, I don't mean us. I mean, But I mean, from the other Star Wars film.
Well, the political situation seems to be that the First Order destroyed a lot of planets with Starkiller Base. Maybe they destroyed the Galactic, the New Republic. Maybe they didn't. Maybe there's probably some remnants that are surviving, but the resistance is all that remains to fight them. There is no military of the Republic. There appears to be no military. There is resistance. Now, Leia puts out the call for help. Remember that part in The Last Jedi? She puts out the call for help. Nobody comes, but we probably will see people rally together. You said that one shot of the camp, whatever people camped out.
It just seems like that could be it.
Yeah,
but,
it could be.
It also might not be.
It could be, it could be just people gathering and coming together. So I think we'll see that in this film. It won't be the Resistance. It will be, the Wookiees and the Ewok. I don't know about the Ewoks, but you know what I mean. I'm just going.
That would not surprise me.
It'd be the Gungans.
I think we're on the moon of Endor.
We are in the. So
Don't you think so?
We might. Yeah,
or Endor itself.
No, it's got to be Endor. Or the only other possibility is that it's the first Death Star and that it's Yavin, but I don't think that's it, because if the Emperor is there, it's got to be Endor. If that's where that Death Star is, it's got to be Endor, right? Because he would have crashed with that Death Star.
Or whatever's near there. But it has. It's just no. I don't think it's out of the question that we won't. our Ewoks in this film. I think that could very well be.
It'd be fun, actually. I'd like to see Ewoks. I have no problem.
Yes, please bring them back.
Yeah, they can hang out with the Porgs. Fight for the most useless character in Star Wars.
Oh, I love the Ewoks. The Porgs, I don't know. They didn't really do anything. They just had a couple funny scenes where they got abused.
Yes,
and barbecued.
And barbecued.
and I think probably in the original cut, that lightsaber went off and killed one of them. Don't you think so?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they got rid of it because it was probably too mean.
So getting back to our clickbait story, it's interesting to me that this trailer is going to have a harsher rating than any other trailer. Does that mean the movie is going to have a harsher rating? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I find it very hard to believe. You can't. I think that's a place where the Mandalorian can go, perhaps.
Sure. Okay.
And even then, I'm not too sure. But I just don't like. Star Wars has always had, limbs amputated is the worst it ever got.
And those are very little blood in that. A little bit of blood.
A little blood
on the floor.
Less and less as it went along.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes.
The first one had the most blood.
That's right.
Oh, but then again, I mean, we did amputate the snow creature, the Wampa.
No blood.
I think there is now, because you see the arm.
Well, but the idea is that the lightsaber cauterizes the wound as it cuts through, so there's no.
Now you see him going.
I mean, you should see that thing should be spurting blood. If you got an arm cut off, that would be like a major artery, but that doesn't happen in Star Wars. So
it's an elegant weapon of a more civilized age.
That's it.
And the more civilized age was when people were lobbing each other's body parts off.
I guess. I guess the more civilized age was, again, this time where this galactic senate was in power and everybody was happy and there was a functioning government and everybody getting back to I'm tying it all together because I don't know what the answer we came up with this episode, Kenton. I don't know.
Well, imagine this. Donald Trump falls into a massive pit and everybody starts partying. 30 years later, a giant warship shows up with Donald Trump on it and a whole fleet of ships with him, and he went, "Hey, I'm back." What would then happen next? Because that's what really this movie is.
I guess so. I don't know.
Although I think in the original movie he was George W. Bush in the prequels.
Probably.
I think that was the inspiration.
That was the era. That was the era, right? So, all right. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But hopefully this made sense. This discussion about politics. Get out and vote, everybody, whenever you get a chance. It is your right. We do not want a galactic empire to take over and take away our right to vote. That's going to do it for this episode of the Star Wars Nerds. I'm Dan Vadabonker.
I'm Kenton Larson. Don't let the Force hit you in the ass.
We'll get to Toshi Station to pick up some power conversion.